Hi everyone and welcome to Dean Park Model Railway. It's been a while since I brought you a layout update from up here in the loft. In fact, it was before Christmas, so it's been a while. There are many reasons for that. I've been pretty busy away from the hobby, as well as working on another project in the shed, and I'll share more progress on that in early summer. So what have I got for you in this layout update? In the last few months, I've been working on my council house scratch builds, and these are 3 identical structures. I shared some progress with you back in the November update, so if you want to find out more there, click on the link at the top of the screen. Also, I've now got to a stage where I feel like I've completed them on the exterior, so I'll go into a lot more detail as to how I managed to build those. Let's say it's taken me a while. I actually designed them over 2 years ago, but it's been a slow progress to scratch build every single element of that. So I'm really excited to get to a stage where I can probably now bring them up to the layout and start working in the scenery around about my council estate. I've also got this Heljan Class 25 Ethel. I picked that up this week from Kernow Model Rail Centre for a bargain price of $99.99, so I'll take a closer look at that. And finally, I take a quick look at this all new Class O2 industrial shunter from Heljan. I'll do a full review in the next week or so, but I'll open the box in this video, have a quick peek inside and give you my first impressions. I have to say I've read some good stuff online and sales of them have been buoyant, so yeah, I'm excited to see for myself. In the meantime, if you wish to support the channel, please hit those like and the subscribe icons. You know I appreciate it, and please share this video across your platforms. If you have any feedback, please post those in the comment section below. I always enjoy reading your feedback and comments, and I reply to as many of them as I can. In the meantime, enjoy the video. Before I move into my video and have a look at my council houses, I just want to pay tribute to Andy York. Andy was the editor of British Railway magazine and the man behind RM Web, and sadly he passed away last week. So my condolences to his friends and his family at this time. He'll be sorely missed within the hobby for his skill, experience and passion. Right, here I am at the west end corner of Dean Park. It's the last corner to be scenically worked on, and it'll be home to the council estate. And on it, it'll have 3 identical flats like this one here, and all the surrounding area, recreation ground, car parks, etc., will be typical of that found on a council estate. The flats have been designed and scratch built by me, and I've now got to the point where I've got one of them completed, externally at least. And I said earlier, these will be joined by 2 other identical blocks of flats. So I'm going to take a closer look at individual areas with this scratch build to give you a better idea of how I did it and the materials used. First off, I've got 4 main walls on the outside, and that was 3mm MDF, and it's kind of got comb joints at the corners. I've clad it in this Southeastern fine cast plain brick, which in turn is painted in a Humbrol 70, which is red brick, and then I've given it a light stone wash to bring out the mortar lines between the brick. Now some people may argue at 00 gauge and smaller you don't need to use a wash to bring out the mortar lines, but I would disagree. I painted this in Humbrol 70 and it looked rather bland and almost toy-like. So what you really need to do is when you take the wash over it, it takes the brashness of the coloured brick, tones that down a little bit, as well as gives some appearance of relief in the actual mortar lines. So I think that adding a wash, whether it be a light stone or a grey, depending what brick you're doing, does bring out the best in the textured plasticard. The windows are made from 1mm MDF. They've been designed and laser cut by me. You're looking at less than 0.5mm for painting for the individual panes on the inside of the actual frame. I just used an aerosol white Halford's primer, and then I went over it with a Tamiya flat white, also out an aerosol, to give it a matte appearance. Remember, a building at this scale, windows in real life are a kind of satin or glossy white. You wouldn't really want that on a scaled model, so you tend to go for a satin or a matte finish with your buildings. Below the windows, I've designed individual windowsills there, or concrete sills, and they wrap around the brick ever so slightly at the corners. That gives the impression that they're built into the brick past the edge of the window. From this angle, you'll get a view of the fascia that runs along behind and just below the black guttering. That's just a bit of MDF, and I've drilled holes in it to fit the fixing points for the guttering. The guttering's not actually glued in position, it's just pushed into the holes in that MDF, and it sits perfectly. You can then see that the downpipes there are fixed to the building on a kind of angled pipe there before it descends vertically. Those are ratio downpipes and gutters, and it's one of the few kits that I used on this scratch build, and I have to say it's a good kit to use. I've used it for many builds in the past, so I would recommend, if you're looking for guttering and downpipes for double O or HO, the ratio kit is the one for you. Looking at the rather plain gable end, which is exactly how the real building is, you can hopefully see the layers of tiles overlapping there on the angles of the roof. The roof itself is a 2mm MDF, which I sanded at an angle at the top there to get it to meet at the apex, and then I primed it first of all to seal it, and then I used the Scale Model Sceneries tile strips, glued on with some spray mount, individually, layer by layer by layer, until I got the effect that I was looking for. The tiles form part of the Scale Model Sceneries range, and they come in grey and terracotta in different levels of weathering through to pristine, as well as unpainted if you wish to have a go at painting roof tiles yourself. I did that on a previous build and it was good fun, but for this particular build I went for the weathered finish, and I'm glad that I did. The chimneys were scratch built by me, and there's just 4 bits of MDF there clad in the brickwork at an angle, and a 1mm plinth on the top. The chimney pots are from Model Railway Scenes, and these are painted in precision paints terracotta mixed with some Humbrol number 62, which is like a leather brown, just to take the kind of glare off the orange terracotta just a little bit. And it matches the ones that I'm trying to replicate on the actual building that exists in real life. I've then weathered them with some Tamiya weathering powders in different colours of brown, some soot, and even on some kind of white streaking with bird droppings that have run down the side of the chimney pot itself. And finally, with regard to the chimneys, you'll notice I've got grey paint along the front there, and it goes up the side as well, and that's to replicate lead flashing that would always be fitted between a chimney breast and the tiles or the roof slates, to stop water ingressing underneath either the brick or the tiles. In real life it would overlap the top of the tiles, but I felt that the effect that I've achieved here is sufficient in double O gauge. Hopefully here you can see inside to the balcony detail, dividing wall there between neighbours, the door there for access to the balcony, just MDF with an MDF separately fitted door frame, and then behind that I've got some frosted glazing, so when the flat is lit that'll give a nice diffused light effect onto the balcony. Down at the bottom I've got the door, separately fitted door frame, glazing in a small vestibule kind of set back design, and the step here, which has just been made from MDF, painted and weathered, it slots in there underneath the door so there's no gaps. The back of the building is a completely different design from the front, gone are the balconies, and instead I've got this large multi-paned bit of glazing, and in real life this would provide natural light for the stairwell. Some of the windows on the rear elevation of the building are of a different proportion to those at the front as well, as per the real building, and it just adds differences between the two elevations. The highlight for me is the areas around the balcony, which took the most thought when I was designing this build. How do I construct it whilst painting it and detailing it? So there was a bit of thought into how it was all going to be constructed there. It's rounded off perfectly at the front by these railings, and these are 3D printed and they're mega fine, and these have been provided by Ian McCready. Ian's done a fantastic job of these, and they really do bring the front of the property to life. Looking on the inside, you've got the central core of the building here, and that's separately built and then slid into position, and that provides detail for all the balconies. You've obviously got an area here if you want to put lights in for lighting the small windows at the back of the balcony. In here I'd put a light if I wanted to light a stairwell, which would shine out the back of the building. This central core not only provides all this detail, but gives structural integrity to the rectangle and stops any of the MDF sides wanting to kind of bow or bend in a little bit. So it's integral to the whole build. The balconies will be detailed with some household furniture, maybe mountain bikes, a broken washing machine, maybe some washing hanging up, a flag over the balcony, maybe a saltire or a Union flag. I'm not really quite sure yet. When I designed the balconies, there's small holes for fitting the railings in, and the railings just sit in there, they're not glued in position, so I can easily remove those railings to detail the balconies at a later date. There are no interiors on the building just now, but that'll come, and they'll be modular in design, and they'll probably be fixed to the baseboard, so I'll be able to lift the entire building off whilst the interiors stay in position, and it'll be easier to detail and maintain the interiors using that method. So there you have it, the first of my 3 council house flat scratch builds here at Dean Park. Council housing is a part of most towns and cities, but it's an area often overlooked by railway modellers, and I wanted something a little bit different here at Dean Park, so I'm glad that I took on the project of doing this council house flat. It's taken me a while, but I really am quite chuffed with what I've managed to achieve. What do you think of my build? Please let me know all feedback in the comments section below. For the council estate, I'm going to need some exterior lighting, such as street lights to put around the car park and the access road. And I'm also going to need some lights for the interior, so when I fit the details inside the building, you'll be able to see them at night. And for this, Chris down at modelsigns.uk has got a range of solutions which I'm going to use here at this corner of the layout. I've got a selection of stuff from Model Signs. First off, I've got these wall-mounted floodlights. They could prove handy for the industrial area. Just wire them to the side of the building, and you could take the wires down on the inside of the structure. I've also got these little surface mounted LEDs with a built-in resistor and with 2 wires soldered onto that, and they'll be ideal for the interior of the building. If you wish to add more resistance to the LED, i.e. dim the light, I suppose you could always wire an LED into one of the wires there. However, the parts I'm most excited about are the street lights. This one here at the back, I've got a more modern design with an adjustable base, and it's got a clear light lens, and through that lens comes an orange sodium glow. If you're modelling anything in the 20th century into the early 21st century, these colourless street lights are literally up your street. It gives an orangey, dim but atmospheric glow. The one at the front is a concrete design with a diffused light lens, and I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to use on the council estate yet, but I'll be wiring them both up to have a look at them, and I'll show you that in a future video. If you want to see more from modelsigns.uk, head over to his website. There's an interesting article in this month's Rail Express magazine covering the life of the Ethels. Now, the Ethel was an adapted Class 25 loco, and its pure purpose was to provide electrical train heating to the new Mark III sleeper coaches that operated in Scotland. The locomotives that hauled sleeper stock in Scotland were traditionally the Class 37, and at that time they only provided steam heat from their boilers, and that was fine with the Mark I coaching stock, which required steam heat, but the new Mark III sleeper stock required this electrical train heating. With no short-term possibility of adapting Class 37s to electrical train heating at that time, BR turned their attention to disused Class 25 stock, and they derated their engine to provide heating for the coaching stock. And this unit was placed in between the locomotive and the Mark III sleepers. During the conversion from Class 25 into the Ethel, the traction motors and driving controls were removed and sockets for ETH cables installed, along with other modifications. The performance of the loco's braking was also adjusted to allow for the lighter weight of the loco. The locos were then painted in BR blue and grey to match the Mark III coaching stock, and provided the train heating for routes such as Glasgow Queen Street up to Fort William and Inverness, on areas where Class 37 steam heated locos were the main traction. When Heljan announced their brand new Class 25 tooling, they included Ethel as part of that range. And Ethel is unpowered, and it was retailing around about £200, the same price as a powered Class 25, also from Heljan. And I remember thinking at the time I quite liked it. However, I couldn't really justify £200 for a model that really wasn't going to operate that often at Dean Park, and it didn't have an operating motor in it. However, I went onto the Kernow Model Rail Centre's website the other week, and I saw these for £99.99, so I snapped one up, and I have to say, I'm glad that I did. The new Class 25 from Heljan really does capture the kind of compact dimensions of the actual loco. The detail on the bogies is superb, and it's got a really detailed cab as well. This unit operates off a 21-pin decoder, and I'll just be putting that in so I can operate the cab lights and use it on DCC. As I said earlier, the model is beautifully presented in BR blue and grey, and this model sports a red buffer beam as well. One thing Heljan do with their locos is that they fit buffer beam detail and pipework to both ends. And that's fine if you're running the loco light engine with no rolling stock attached or having the model on display. But if you wish to run coaches or have it hauled by a loco, you're going to have to remove this pipework and couplers to both ends. And that's a bit of a faff. In the case of the Ethel, both ends are going to be fitted with couplers because they go in between the loco and the coaches. So I'm going to have to remove all the detail at both ends. Even though the Ethel only provided train heat for the rolling stock, it still had its engine and therefore would produce quite a nice engine note. In the model, there's no motor fitted, so that should give a decent provision for a large speaker to be fitted to provide that engine note if you wish to go down the sound fitting route, and that's something I might look at in the future. This nifty little loco from Heljan is their Class 02 industrial shunter, and I'm going to fit a Next 18 decoder to it. To get into the body, to fit the decoder, it's very simple. There are 3 screws to remove. 2 are found underneath here, just behind the white tanks, and the third one is found here, and that's underneath the bonnet mounted dummy light. So you just take that off, remove the screw, and then prise the body away from the chassis. Upon removing the body, I'm instantly impressed by the compact nature of this loco. They've got the PCB board there, you've got your Next 18 blanking chip, which I'm going to obviously replace with the decoder, and there's even a mini factory fitted speaker in there as well. All this detail and technology in such a small space just wasn't available a decade ago, so you just see in this instance how technology has moved on, and the miniaturization of it has allowed these little details to be crammed in to such a small loco. Looking inside the cabin, I'm very impressed with what Heljan have included in here. You've got your driver and second man controls, seats, and also a central panel here as well. Fitting the Next 18 decoder really is very simple. You just take off the blanking chip there and place in your Next 18 decoder of choice. In this case, I'm going to use an HM7000 by Hornby. I've checked it on my rolling road and the decoder is functioning inside the loco, so I'm going to pop the body back on and get it on the layout. Now, I'm not a fan of industrial shunters, I really don't collect them, but I have to say there's something about this little thing that is quite impressive. And you wouldn't expect on a loco of this size to have functioning head and tail lights, but you'd be wrong. Heljan have managed to get the shunting lights to work on this. And I'll put a kind of image on the screen now to show you how they look in the dark. They're very small, but wow, I mean, to get working lights on a loco this small is just mega impressive. Being a loco of such small proportions, it was never going to give you Bose surround sound from such a small speaker on board. But you know what? I think it gets the sounds out pretty well. I wouldn't imagine the Class O2 was a massively noisy loco anyway, so it's not needing a massive speaker. So there you have it, the Heljan Class O2 industrial shunter. I'll be taking a closer and more in-depth look at this in the next week or so please stay tuned for that video. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing progress on my council flat scratch builds. Now that those are complete externally, I'll be able to push on with the council estate at the west end of the layout. It's been an area that I've been meaning to do for ages, and I've got lots of ideas in my head, so hopefully some of those can come to fruition on the baseboard. I'll be back very soon with a closer look at the all-new Heljan Class O2 industrial shunter, so please join me for that. And if you wish to support the channel, please hit those like and the subscribe icons. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.